Welcome back to another episode of the Randy Wilson Podcast. This is episode 51. We are here today with Inso Media, and we have a wonderful guest with us today, Chelsea Higgs Wise. Thank you, Chelsea, for being on the show.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
We're very excited. This is a pleasure to have you on the show, and it's a little bit different for our audience. So really excited for how you're gonna, help expand us today with all the great work that you do. Most of you all, if you're from Richmond, you're familiar with Chelsea Higgs Wise. However, for those who are not, we're definitely excited today to help you get more acclimated with her. Let me get into her bio. It's extremely extensive, okay? Extremely extensive. So I'm gonna give you the brief version.
Please.
Social worker, master's in social work. I know you went to Longwood University and VCU as well.
VCU for my master's, yep.
So we have some things in common because I'm also in the healthcare field as well. Chelsea is an experienced facilitator who specializes in connecting people from different walks of life to create equitable communication strategies. She offers facilitated dialogue on race, politics, feminism, and sex. She's an experienced advocate and inclusion educator who consults with a wide range of organizations, campaign narratives, and event activities to achieve outreach results in local districts. Passionate about dialogue and deliberation for attitudinal shifts. And I never saw the word attitude with a null on it before. So, in involving structural approaches specifically aimed toward racial justice and gender equality. Race Capital is a weekly 1-hour radio show that airs on Wednesdays at 10 a.m., WRIR 97.3, which also was just highlighted and recognized as one of Richmond's top podcasts. We're going to talk about that also. We're definitely going to talk about that. Race created by you, if I'm correct. I know you have a couple co-hosts as well.
Yes, Kalia Harris, Naomi Isaac, big shout out to them. They joined earlier this year, and I could not have done this without them, especially this past summer.
Super impressive. I think you just started this year. Correct.
We started it, my very first episode of Race Capital happened not long after the shooting of Marcus David Peters back in 2018.
Okay.
I actually got the show together and started weekly in 2019. So it's been about a year that we've been on WRIR.
Okay. And yep. I've listened to the show. I thought it was longer. I read somewhere, though, I read something about this year, May. I don't know. Maybe that was just one of the...
It's when we got really popular because
Gotcha.
It's when the uprisings happened, and truly we've been interrogating. Race Capital is known to interrogate racial narratives in the former capital of the Confederacy. So when everybody started talking about Black lives actually mattering, one of the very few places to even find those narratives historically has been Race Capital.
Okay.
So our following grew tremendously just this past summer.
Okay, well, listen, for those of you who are following the Randy Wilson podcast, please go follow Race Capital. Please. I mean, being a podcast, I'm sure we share in common. I'm really big about uplifting and empowering the podcast community. So this is one of Richmond's top, I'm going to say top number one. I think it might have been number 2 in the paper, hey, top podcast in Richmond. You definitely got to check it out. And there's a lot of people who follow the show that's not Richmonders. So hopefully we can steer some traffic that way.
Well, and if I can throw a pitch to them,
Please.
Even if you do not live in Richmond, the reason why it's important to listen to Race Capital is because out of Richmond, Virginia, 1 out of 4 Black Americans, if you have roots right here, if your family was enslaved, you have roots to Richmond because of the downriver trade. So these narratives about Black history, Black relations narratives come from this place, space, and time, which is what we interrogate on Race Capital. So follow us. We talk about defunding the police. We talk about what's happening internationally, and we can tell you the news, what will relate to you in your local area, but it's coming right here from the fallen capital of the Confederacy.
Definitely. I've listened to the podcast, and I've been very intrigued and completely distracted from work during the day. What time? It comes on at
10 a.m.
10 in the morning. Yeah. So make sure you all check that. Can you also drop your social media handles as well?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram at Chelsea Higgs Wise. That's ChelseaHigggsWise. I'm on Twitter at Chelsea Wise RVA. Facebook is my name. If you want to follow the podcast, please do. We are Race Capital. That's capital with an O. RACE capitol, because we're taking our narratives to the Capitol Square. We actually talk about legislation and policy as well. I'm deep into policy, which I'm sure will come out a little bit later. And something else I'm sure you'll mention very soon, which is marijuana justice. And you can follow marijuana justice at THC Justice Now on all social media.
That was actually next. I wanted you to plug that. Definitely wanted you to plug that. Can you talk to us a little bit about marijuana justice?
Absolutely. So marijuana justice was started in 2019. I am a political advocate. So in a month that I call Blackface History Month 2019, when Governor Northam had the yearbook scandal where the KKK, the blackface came out, I think that he got off pretty well, thinking everybody was the blackface. I think he was in the Klan robe, to be real. And I do, to be honest. And I think that that was the easier thing for him. But after all of that came out, Governor Northam came out and said that he was going to promise equity to Black Virginians, to all of Virginians. And so our challenge to him was, okay, we know by the national trend, again, watching the narrative, is that cannabis is going to be legalized soon. Too many corporations are finding that there's too much money into it for it not to happen. I also like to remind people that Virginia is number 1 for business and number 50, literally last, for workers. So we love corporations here, but we do not pay anybody well, we do not protect anybody well, and we will lay you off and hopefully you can get another job, however that does. So we exploit that work. I say all of that to say is that marijuana justice was formed and able in order to fight that type of corporate capitalism that's going to come to cannabis. So as many people that want to talk about money in cannabis, and Les, please go out, get your coin, but please pay attention to the legislation that's going to impact how accessible your coin is. And that's what we want to do. Remember, there's right now African Americans in the cannabis industry across the United States only make up less than 4% of the market. That makes no sense, especially if you're looking at how it's impacted us. It's impacted us at almost 4 times the rate with enforcement. So marijuana justice, we are here to talk about our 3 R's, which is repealing the prohibition of cannabis the right way. This decriminalization bullshit is just not, I can cuss on your show. Yeah. This decriminalization bullshit is not the thing. Right now you can get fines, you can get fees, and they're talking about, oh, well, it won't show up on your record. Let me tell you what, the landlord won't see it. Your educational institution won't see it. Your employer won't see it. But Randy, guess who's still going to see that record?
Yeah.
The cops. The cops are still going to be able to see it. So when they pull you over, they're going to see your whole record, even if it's that little bit of weed, and they're going to automatically target you, even before they even pull you over. My point all that to say, we're going to repeal this the right way, actually remove it from the code, okay? So repeal it. Number 2, we're going to repair all of this damage, and that is a big package that includes things like when they take your shit, when they arrest you, and you'll never get it back, or they take your money. They making money off of that. I mean, there are these small things that we get criminalized for that is part of this repair. And our 3rd R is reparations. I'm not kidding. We're about to get billions of dollars. Not to mention the billions of dollars they already made off of us by this prison for profit bullshit that they made by the gateway to the prison pipeline has always been cannabis, right? So now it's time for us to get our coin. That money ain't going nowhere. It's not playing for nothing. You can go ahead and give it right back to Black people. And there is time to do that, y'all. There's time to actually demand that, to put that to our legislation. I work all the time with people in politics, right? These legislators don't know anything about this, and they're not thinking about this, and when they're ready, they're going to side with the corporations and give it all away. So that's why Marijuana Justice is here, and you can follow us on marijuanajustice.org.
She's smart. Goodness gracious.
Oh, she reads.
Wow. So you said a lot of things there that is, I'm going to have to jump around. I got to touch on a few things there. First, you mentioned equity, or you mentioned equality. I don't know which one you said.
It's equity. Okay,
so because I hear everyone keeps talking about equality. I'm glad we're on the same. I see we're on the same page with that. Can you expand on your take there? I think that we need to. I think there needs to be some. Just particularly, let's be specific within the Black community. We need to use the appropriate word and put it in the appropriate context. We're not saying that we don't want equality. But I'm saying I don't want equality because honestly, what we're saying with equality is an imaginary dream. Capitalism is never going to make everyone equal, right? So this idea of diversity just with race and what it looks like, we got to be intersectional and realize our money and our coin is intertwined with this equity. And equity in the business world, what do you think about?
money.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, I've even tried, I love that you read my bio for my website, because that's the website I make money off of people and nonprofits and corporations for me to come in, say some disruptive stuff, make my coin. I'll probably never get invited back. But it's a real way of talking about me going in and saying, you need to take your money and give it back to the community. That's what equity actually is. Remember, equality is what our ancestors fought for 60s and 70s, but we had to learn that lesson that Martin Luther King said right before he died. I'm going to go ahead and everyone knows it. I don't quote King a lot because white people have colonized his whole movement, but the idea that he got killed once he started talking about money, right? And it's not actually about how many of us are in the room. It's actually about who's making the decision, who has all the money to make the decision, and how that money is going to actually reach the people that need the money right now because they're hungry. I mean, people are actually hungry right now. So, yeah.
When you think about politics, and I don't think about, when I think about you, I don't think about politics, but you have to know how to move and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I got two questions for you. I'm interested in on your take on politics in general, but I'm also interested when you think about elections, and we are in election season. I think Donald Trump has shown us that you don't have to be a politician to win.
We should have learned that from Reagan.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is in the best interest of the country? Do you think having a good, well-rounded person, business person, strong belief system, family-oriented, whatever the case is, or do you think having a politician who has a deep-rooted history and background in politics?
Okay. So if I have to choose within the system that we are currently working in, because my biggest dream and what I would say is to really abolish the system that we have.
I agree.
It will not work.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that was a conversation we was having at home last night, because the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have always been parties, but what have they done? They both have done plenty of bad things.
Right. And we're just going to continue to reform, which is what we've been doing for 400 years, and it's never worked. And the idea that the party system is ever going to change and the system for us, and the idea that we can create our own at this point is also, if we're going to do all that work to create our own, let's create our own world that's outside of this political machine that we think is for us. We're never going to fit into it. So that's my real answer to this.
We're going to create our own bubble.
Yeah, right. But actually,
Yeah.
I mean, that's, people think let's get down to the foundation of it. If we have our own land, if we have our own resources, we actually can create our own bubble. And if we have our own guns. That was you. Not me.
Sorry.
Nope. If we have our own guns. I'll just say that. So we can be that sovereign and that control of our peace. But if we are in this movement, if we are functioning in the world that we have now, I'm voting. I was actually served this year in the National Democratic Committee.
Yes, I saw that.
I was
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I was a delegate. So when you normally see the big conventions and when they nominate the nominee, I would have gone there, but we had COVID, so it was all virtual this year. So I am heavily involved in politics. And like you said, I have to be in order for any of what I yell about all the time to make sense and for me to be informed. But I'm going to be real. Maybe this is a little bit of an exclusive, but I'm really ready to resign from this party. I think after this election, I'm done with the Democratic Party. I cannot continue to stand in these rooms. And a comrade of mine said it's like going to the ballot and voting for slavery. Either way.
It's a tough position though, because I think there's people who can empathize and understand why you would say that, but at the same time, we need people in those spaces.
Right. And I'm not leaving political space, right? I'm just not necessarily caucusing with the Democrats.
I got
right.
you.
And there's a certain kind of loyalty that comes with being the Democratic Party. I'm in the local committee. I do the voting. The reason why I was able to be a representative at that national level. But to have this type of association is starting just to make me feel sick. So I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. My family, they get bothered when I say this, but I feel that for so many years we've just given our vote away.
Oh, absolutely.
And And I'm voting. I've already
Yeah.
voted. I've already voted. But I had some challenges this year with that. Like I wasn't sure if I was going to because I didn't feel that any of the candidates on the presidential ballot was deserving of my vote. I didn't feel like they'd earned my vote.
They haven't.
And I think the struggle that I have with our parents' generation is that, well, and older, is that black people have fought. There are many people who have fought for us to have the right and privilege to vote.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a different conversation now that we've evolved. Time has changed, and I feel like it's a slave mentality for us to just feel obligated to give our vote away because our great grandparents fought for us.
Look, Randy,
I'm not there.
Now we're not even just giving it away. Have you seen the memes? People are packing up their lawn chairs, their coolers, because it's taking hours to vote. So now it's this big momentum and push initiative that I'm seeing to get your stuff together, do whatever you have to do to vote. In actuality, 50 years later, we should be at the point where voting is a non-factor. Of course we vote. In Virginia, we vote every single year. By the way, every single year in November, we have an election. Mm-hmm. And that's on purpose, is so that you get so bogged down with so many campaigns, you don't pay attention. But they're always paying attention. So I understand where people are just like, how can we even do this anymore? But what I like to bring up as far as our ancestors and the people that fought before us and our elders, we talk a lot about the civil rights movement. We do not talk about the Black liberation movement as much. And some people speak of it interchangeably, but they were very different. And the Black liberation movement was much more grounded in the programs that you saw and that were criminalized in the Black Panther movement and some other, especially Black women movements that were going on that were not publicized. And so when we are glorifying these moments, remember who was giving us these moments to glorify? Are there other politicians that are bought into the civil rights moment that maybe didn't even hear King's last message, right? They might have realized that what black folks, the Black liberation movement, are having our own businesses, having our own. They might have been radical in a lot of ways, especially in patriarchy, but that concept we did not pick up. We wanted integration so badly. And so I try and talk about that with our vote too, is that now it's not just give away your vote, but now we got to vote or die. My God, Diddy is back with the vote or die. I'm so through with it. Please vote. But also, I can't wait till November 4th. I'm going to just be like, did y'all save the world? Y'all cast your vote. Is it fixed? Is it done? Because actually, it takes so much more than this. Yeah. So which is, again, why nothing that ever changes us is going to come from a politician, actually.
Yeah, that's facts. You said something just now that had another... it'll come back to me. Chelsea, what led you into the work? And this is... the reason why I say that is, I know there's a lot of titles, I guess, that you have and that you could probably uphold, but, at the end of the day, I just think it's the work. It's it's like so much you got so much stuff going on, but I think it's more of the work. It's you define your activity. And just so that you know that I know who Chelsea is, but I don't know her great. But everybody who's in the know knows that she is on the ground, engaged, hands-on, involved in the work that has to help uplift and empower Black people.
Yeah.
And I want to give you your kudos to that because, and I'm going to talk more about that, but the reason why I want to do that is because I just love having conversation. I love being objective. I love being critical. I love analyzing things.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to ever demean or criticize or be harsh. And you do receive your fair share of criticism, but at the same time, you do your share of the work.
Right.
Can you just defend yourself?
Gosh. Defend yourself. Okay, well, for people that might be confused with that, the real politicians, of course, don't like me, right? Well, okay. So that of course.
But all of them not? Because I would imagine some of them probably love you. Love is a strong word.
Love is a strong word. Because
you in a position.
Right. The point is right now politicians, there's so much money in politics, and at some point they're going to know they're not going to be able to stand on the right side with me. And they're just worried how I'm going to react with that. And I do stay in communications, and with the people and the politicians I'm in communications with, it's no problem. And I really do choose my battles very closely, y'all. And when I'm coming out, it's probably because I've tried and we've tried and it's been a long time. So politicians are one thing, and some politicians do. They're mostly progressive that don't have a lot of power anyway, unfortunately. And in the community, when I get my critiques, is because I call out Black people. And that makes folks really uncomfortable. And I call out local Black people that you might like and you don't realize are actually using their likability to continue to keep us in chains.
Yeah. I mean, is it fair to say that Obama was able to do that pretty well with a lot of Black people? I mean, a lot of Black people voted for Obama just because he was Black and loved him because he was a attractive, light-skinned Black man with good hair. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure. And this is why I say politicians don't always love me, because, again, I championed Obama.
Yeah.
But everything that's happened with family separation and ICE actually was created and put together by Obama. It wasn't implemented to the size by any means, but the structure that was allowed there, that was placed there, was Obama. And if we don't understand the struggle of what's happening with undocumented folks and immigrants with the border, then that's a whole other podcast. But we got to connect our struggle, especially from people of other lands that are seeking refuge. And so you're right. We've got to notice of when we can critique these people that are Black or Republicans, right? And we can be like, oh, they sellouts. But in Richmond, everybody is a Democrat. Like, you're not going to win any political space pretending to be a Republican, okay? So now, that's why I don't really critique Republicans. You're not going to see me talking about 45.
All right, let me ask you that again.
Yeah.
All right, so say that one more time. You don't think that in Richmond, I mean, you say Virginia?
Richmond. In
Okay.
Richmond City.
Okay.
Richmond City.
Even if you're Black? I almost feel like a Black Republican might have a little bit more.
Why are you speaking this into? We're
not.
not far. Look, just last week, the Black Opportunity Council formed a PAC and it started giving thousands, like tens of thousands of dollars to very centrist, what I would call conservative candidates in the blue side and the left side. They're not Tea Party people, but they are conservative, giving tens of thousands of dollars to these local candidates. And these local candidates are people like Cynthia Newbill in the 7th, Ellen Robertson in the 6th, both that are very much for corporate, Ellen Robertson is the reason why everyone's prices in South Side are going up and the North Side. She is completely sold out to developers. I mean, the gentrification, the eviction rate, your mama and your auntie's house being sold up under them, these are these politicians that are doing that and smiling in your face and saying, I'm here for Black people because we don't know any better. So I call that out, and people are like, not Ellen and Cynthia, they're so nice. And I call out the president of the NAACP. I mean, that is one of my, they can go whole row. But I do this, I don't like Lavar Stoney. He don't like me either. Like, this is a lot of how I'm known. And they're like, what, the Black mayor? The Black young man? We can't keep him down? I'm sitting here telling you that the city attorney has released a video of Mayor Lavar Stoney from a police meeting telling the police, don't worry, I'm going to stall the investigation so everyone will forget. I'm actually on your side, because the police had hit a biker in the protest. And we were like, yo, use of force, right? You locking us up for standing there saying that we're a riot. And Lavar Stoney is literally saying this to the cops this summer. It's so egregious that the city attorney leaks it. But Black people are mad at me for saying, nah, this ain't it. He ain't the one. And so, but it takes context. It takes information. It takes time for me to tell that whole story. A lot of people see it on social media and be like, oh, she a hater, blah, blah, blah. She just want attention. They write me off, see their favorite socialite throwing a party, them smiling with Lavar Stoney and be like, oh, that's where we should fall.
Let me ask, so how are you able to still, or are you able to still navigate and work with Lavar? Or attempt to work with him? Or is it just kind of like
right,
hands off at this point?
The truth is that Lavar never worked with us. I tried to work with Lavar for a very long time. May 2018, when Marcus David Peters was shot and killed, right? I have Lavar's phone number. We would text. I mean, people have access to him. And nothing, right? After the shooting, he wanted nothing to do with the police. Since then, he actually didn't want to give us any information about the use of force. He wanted to charge us $4,000. We're broke-ass activists. We're trying to show you that the police are harassing us.
I think this is great because he's supposed to be one of our upcoming guests.
Oh,
Post-election. So I think that you should say.
Please. Okay. So let's just talk about the policing with Lavar Stoney, right? I don't know if your listeners care. We can talk about housing, we can talk about schools, but I can tell you right here about policing because it does affect our Black lives. When Marcus David Peters, even before he got shot, we had gone to him and said, over 700 people on the South Side, Black folks, we said, hey, what's your biggest concern in the city? And they said, public safety. What about public safety? The police. We want to be safe from the police. Y'all, that's just what came up when an open question, right? Knocking over 700 doors. We take this to Lavar Stoney. 2017, he's just elected, right? This is something you can really do and help us with. Legal Aid Justice Center has started their civil rights division. They're helping out with it. The Advancement Center up in D.C. is helping us with it. The defense, public defenders are helping us with it because they're all hearing these stories about Richmond police officers just beating the hell out of us. Or overcharging us, stalking people in public housing. So we go to him and say, look, we've got this data from the people. And he goes, I don't believe that. Prove it. So we're like, well, how do we prove it? He's like, give me the data. Well, who has the data? The police. He wants to see the police data. So then we go in FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, which is supposed to be all public sector information should be free and accessible to us, which is why we don't want nonprofit stuff, like public money going to nonprofits, because we could never FOIA them. We can never get those public records. So that's something to remember. My point is we FOIA it, and in order to fill the FOIA, they charge us $4,000. Say, well, for the labor, for the printing, we have to go a public campaign. We finally do it, and we realize that 1 out of 6 Black Richmonders will have an interaction with the cops every year, no matter what, at least. And Lavar Stoney continues to not want to work with us. He went and got a contract with a predictive policing. Like now, they are usually using digital technology to police Richmond. And they call it predictive policing. Look it up. It's the most racist technology that's out there. And Lavar Stoney didn't even tell us about it. Lavar Stoney loves a good press conference. Ask him why he didn't have a press conference when he signed this contract for Globa Soma, because he knew we would get on his ass and say, this is more predictive policing on Black Richmonders.
You say you think he loves a good press conference?
Oh, he loves a press conference.
He had a tough one, though, during the heat, I guess the peak of the protesting. I'll say peak just because there's a lot of people who are watching in other places, and I don't know if your activity has been as consistent as Richmond's. Richmond protesting is still exists. It's not really. It may not be as high as it was a couple months ago, but it's definitely not went stagnant by any means.
And Richmond was protesting so hard because we've been protesting, because we've been fighting for fuck the police and defund the police. Like, we have a whole organization, Richmond Transparency Accountability Project. We've been proposing legislation to stop the cops. The legislation, the civilian review oversight that's now going to pass into law soon, was something we've been working on for years. And Lavar Stoney refused to sign on to this until July, when there was no other course he had to. It was public, push. So he's y'all, I know I don't want to get too much into this, but when I tell you that Lavar Stoney is paid by the cops, he loves the cops, he literally, in the middle of the protest, he has assigned a new chief. We've been through 3 chiefs just this summer because we've protested them all. But he actually appointed a chief that had shot a Black man in the back. Like, with no cause, uninvestigated. We all brought it up, and they were like, oh, yeah, that's probably bad. And then he had to get rid of him, too. I mean, this is just the lack of oversight or care about what's actually happening and what that means for Black folks in Richmond is just egregious.
So I have 2 questions for you related here. I want to touch on police, but before we go there, since we're talking about the mayor, it appears that you have endorsed Alexia Rogers.
Alexis Rogers.
I just realized that's Rich Rogers' sister.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I didn't even know he had a sister. So, can you speak to what contributed to you giving her endorsing her? Because I'm not familiar with her or her background.
Yeah, I can tell. Her name is Alexis Rogers. We're going to get her name right. Black woman.
I'm sorry there.
Black woman.
Black queen.
Black queen, yes. And, so Alexis is a young black political woman, and she's actually the reason why I have any access to politicians right now. She provided me a way to speak my story and my voice back in 2017 within Planned Parenthood. So something else about me is that before I got into the work, right, I was a social worker for 10 years.
Doing the work.
Doing the work. But I was actually getting paid. The work I've done for years, there has been no pay. But I would say that, hold on, I lost my train of thought.
You're speaking to more your endorsement of her.
Oh, so, right, Alexis, in 2017, and after I got out of social work, I realized I was working with nothing but black mothers. So I was working a lot with Planned Parenthood. It was a place that was accessible for health care, reproductive care. And in 2017, I was able to share a story, and she gave me access to these politicians. She was working for the top advisor for Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam back then when he was Lieutenant Governor. And I'm going to be honest, she's been quiet, but she's smart, she's real, and she came out only because of the protests and the uprising. She wasn't going to run before June, but she saw that Lavar Stoney and the Commonwealth Attorney, Colette McKeechin, that's right, Donald McKeechin and G, yep, that's who our Commonwealth Attorney is. That's who our prosecutor is, that's also a cop, right? And so one night, they just went on a mass arrest and arrested over 200 people. They couldn't have access to lawyers. Some people were left on a bus, like, they didn't have handcuffs, but the thing that they put on your wrist, left over there overnight. No water, no food. And Alexis Rogers went and met with the Commonwealth Attorney, Colette McKeechin, tried to get a meeting with Lavar. Nobody cared. No one did anything. I'm like, well, it's fine. And so she realized that she has access. She's run every campaign in Virginia. All of these politicians know who Alexis is. She's one of the best organizers in the state. All right. She's undervalued as a black woman. If you know anything about Democrats or politicians, I understand if you don't follow politics, but if you do, you know who the hell Alexis Rogers is. Give her time, because she's run your campaign. She's brought all the black people out for you. This is the time for Alexis Rogers. And this is what's real funny, because now I'm seeing a lot of black officials, like statewide folks, going right for Stoney just because it's a boys club, and also because it's about a centrist money and a centrist corporation. And Alexis is actually progressive. She actually wants to divest from the police. She actually wants she wants Richmond to not be number 2 in evictions. Isn't that wild? Like, she has followed Stoney. She's talked to Stoney. She's been resisted by Stoney. I'm here to talk about Alexis Rogers being our future because she's young. She's only 27 years old.
Wow.
But she can talk policy better than most. Yeah. And she's run all of this. And she's just been kind of waiting her turn. And then when she saw the egregiousness happen, and one of her friends was actually missing that night, because this is the night that they called for a curfew and didn't tell nobody and just started gassing everybody and everyone at the monument. I mean, it was a ridiculous night. Yeah. And people are still facing felony charges from that.
This is impressive for me to hear about her. I wasn't really familiar with her. I used to work in politics, but when I got away, like all the way.
Good for you.
So I've not really been engaged in that, particularly on a local level.
Right.
But
and my last thing about Alexis Rogers is her current job right now is actually for Care in Action. Care in Action is a domestic workers advocacy group. And domestic workers, remember, are black women, Latino women. These are the women that clean your houses, the au pairs, the people that are literally like the bottom of the bottom, that take care of us too. So these are the people that she's fighting for minimum wage, for health care, for paid leave. This is what Alexis has actually been doing. Not to mention she worked for Planned Parenthood, who was the comms director for a very long time. I mean, Alexis has done her due about black women. She's a black queer woman, by the way, LGBTQ total friendly. I don't understand only thing is that people just don't know about her. Yeah. Because she came in very recently, and with COVID, who knows how to even catch up with the news. Maybe you should have her on.
Yeah, maybe.
What?
Hey, if you can help with that, I definitely will.
It's short before the election, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't get the Stoney interview until after the election, so well, depending on how this goes, it'll depend on how the question goes, and depending on how, look, I just ask questions. Depending on how this interview is received, maybe depend on if I even want to continue doing it.
That's true.
Do
That's
I
true.
care? No,
That's true.
I don't care because I feel like the whole purpose of why we do this podcasting and we do this is
Right.
to have a platform for people to express their public opinion. And if you're gonna run for a public office, I made
Right.
a post on Facebook the other day. It's like, look, you may not be responsible for making all the decisions in any position, but you are responsible for being available to answer questions.
When you sign up for public service,
Yes.
I even qualify myself. I'm not an elected official at all.
But you're a public figure.
But I'm a public figure and I make myself accessible. I make myself accountable. And if people think I've never answered for something, it's because I actually don't think that everything is for public consumption, and that's not it. But if anyone ever wants to talk to me about something one-on-one, I'm actually really open and transparent about it. I do appreciate you having me on and having this conversation. It's something that, unless you're in politics and if you're more in the cultural world, music world, artistic world, you don't dance around this, right? It's harder. People shy away from it. But I'm just really here begging folks to realize that we're in a moment where we can't really look away from this.
I'm excited to have you on because I believe that for the demographic that we primarily cater to, they need something different than what we typically provide them. Like, I'm just for those of you listening, like, I got one interview coming up with some artist friends, but I'm taking an artist break.
Maybe that's what you need. Maybe that's your listeners.
That's what I need. That's what I need. I need. But I'm gonna take leadership and say to my listeners, you got an opportunity to listen to music and artists in different ways. For my platform, I want to make sure that we're providing, like, even when I'm talking to artists, I'm not just talking about music.
Right.
I want to make sure that we're talking about real things, and I think that I got to make more of an effort to get closer to people who are doing real work, because I think that's what's going to expand what artists decide to focus on.
No, absolutely. And some of my closest friends are artists, right, to be real, and I love seeing what they've been able to produce or not produce or just think about in these past times. And they've been really grateful that I've poured into them and they've had access to me to have these types of thoughts. And so it's been this exchange of energy that I really also appreciate. So I'm inviting folks to please follow, ask questions.
You're an artist as well. You know that, don't you?
I do consider myself that. When I jumped into the nonprofit world, I called myself a creative because I think of creative ways to bring this across, right? Race capital and marijuana justice didn't create themselves.
I think you're a communication artist also because I feel like you have a way of knowing how to convey things. And so I think that we're all artists. It's just a matter of being able to understand what it is that we are.
Yeah.
Great.
And I'm a trained therapist, by the way. So I'm providing therapy, clinical work for about 10 years is my actual training. So speaking, talking to people, listening, repeating back is something that I've just been trained to do.
So let me ask you this. Two questions. All right, let me ask you this first. Okay. You've been doing this work at a without pay for, you said, 3 years. How? I guess is the first question. But at the same time, I'm hoping for those people who are listening, okay? I'm not speaking for you, but I'm going to speak on your behalf, okay? I hope that y'all recognize, though, that I'm more for the critical people. Like, for someone to do something for 3 years without, like, a consistent source of income, I think I need to lighten up a little bit because, like, that is, you've clearly got a commitment toward, doing something here.
And I'm not trying to build a big business. I'm actually just learning the information. So if anyone ever has questions, I can give it to you. I'm very critical, and of course I have a bias, but I come with all the receipts. So anything I've said, I can provide the receipt for you. I read a lot, y'all, and I enjoy this. I do love the communication artistry, which is why I'm here. And, if I love that you started off with, she's smart. It's just, I think once people realize that all of the intentionality of reading information as well as stories of people I've talked to that I've gathered before I speak, then people can maybe appreciate that a little bit more.
Well, I feel like it's easy to recognize your intelligence. At the same time, I think for some people, it can be intimidating because of how much you do read. I mean, it's their problem if it is, but in order to learn, you have to be willing to listen.
Are you talking about my personal life right now, Randy? Or no, I'm just playing. No, really, but people are intimidated by that sometimes.
Well, I think people are intimidated by intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just because most people are complacent and comfortable in their own space and they're meeting their own horizons.
But
I mean, I have had some conversations through text with you a while back and sat there and really been like, dang, like I got to make sure that before I even provide any type of response, I really seek this in to make sure that I can possibly understand the other side that it's coming from, because I don't want to be perceived as ignorant ever. So I'm not going to just say something stupid, but like, because you're trained in what you do. You do the work.
Right. And if people are having a conversation with me, I can have a conversation. It's when you start attacking me. But let's just be real. It's easier just to erase me. Like, right? So you don't got to go through the ego. You don't have to go through your own ignorance of what you don't know, what harm you may have done that's now being confronted. It's easier just to erase me.
So someone said this to me because I was asking a few folks who follow Rebecca.
Rebecca Keel.
So after I love she.
They.
I thought I was doing it.
You did. You were so.
I was trying. I love they. She's like a little sister. Like
they.
Excuse me.
They are like a little sister.
They.
But sister is also gender. So like.
I'm practicing. I'm horrible.
They're a sibling.
I'm horrible. I am horrible.
You'll get there. You just keep practicing.
Yeah, but
Rebecca Keel, they, them, amazing organizer. Yeah.
After we've had a few conversations, and I had some people in my comments, and there was one particular person, I won't say their name, but we spoke in that conversation about possibly having you on, and I'm glad it came to happen. And so someone said, she does a lot of great work, but what is her agenda? And I said, I don't know. I'm gonna ask that question when the opportunity arises. Like, because I don't think that. There's nothing. If you have an agenda, it's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it can be a personal agenda, it can be a professional agenda, it can be a community agenda. What is your agenda? What is the goal for you?
A bitch got goals, okay? And of course, I have an agenda, and I would love for people to join my agenda. Specifically, in my direct work with Race Capital, my agenda is to literally bring you counter narratives within this place, space, and time. So I'm going to give you a different story from what you're reading in the mainstream media, and I'm going to critique that, right? So my agenda there is to actually make you think, right? So with marijuana justice, my agenda there is to literally set niggas free. Like, I actually want them to stop locking us up, set us free with the second R, and in the third R, pay us. So that's my agenda. These are my actual agendas. And I've been so broke for all this time. What agenda you think I got? I've had so much access to these politicians. I could have been run and been elected. I'm gonna be real with you. I could have been the next up-and-coming speaker. Y'all, they loved me when I first got in the game. They loved it. I'm master's degree, light-skinned, well-spoken. They were ready to pick me up and go. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. And I was like, this is trash. This is not why I started. And the reason why I started is because I got divorced. I wanted a whole new life. I'm a mom. I wanted something different for my daughter. And I had done the whole live the American dream, meet someone, get your degree. I had done all the things they told me to do, and it wasn't working. And I wasn't going to dive back into something I knew wasn't going to work. So,
will you ever run for office?
I might. I said that last year. Again, I'm telling you, I'm leaving the Democratic Party, so that might not ever really be a thing. But if, for whatever reason, if there is a whole new government and we're actually going to work with majority progressives to do something different, maybe. They're going to call me the little AOC. Like, I'm that radical, right? So when Richmond and maybe is ready, or right now, my real thing outside of political office is making cannabis work. It's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars, and you still probably going to see me broke at the end of this, and you'll see my real agenda was actually really making sure legislation didn't keep all of us broke, right? And locked the fuck up. And locked up, y'all. Remember, even with legalization, they are still stopping us. They are still locking us up for weed, saying you distribute it, saying you're intoxicated while driving, overcharging you so that when they do, finally let it go, you're taking a plea deal. I mean, that's my agenda, y'all, for real.
I think she answered the question.
And again, I'm too broke to be doing this to have an agenda.
Well, I just broke
Right.
in some ways, maybe if we're thinking monetary. But if you keep doing this work, I mean, you're definitely not broke in intelligence. You're definitely not broke in spirit.
Right. Capitalism has not been kind to me.
But I can't imagine. To me, it seems like you just have so much to offer and contributing to.
Well, look, I'm not going to stay broke for long. And I will say that this current movement this past summer has brought a lot of funding to marijuana and justice. It's brought up a lot of attention. Thank you for everyone that has joined our Patreon on Race Capital. Please consider that. Even $5 a month, even $1 a month gives us to a sustainable funding. We do this for free. We offer an hour-long production that we do the research of history, the current narratives, and give you that stuff. I'm the oldest person on that platform. I'm 35. I've been calling myself like an elder millennial during this movement because I have been getting a lot of attention and a lot of grace, but I've been giving it back. Like, there were points where I was literally just like, send me your Cash App if you're a Black organizer, and I'm just giving out money. And that's the type of energy I'm actually trying to see from Black influencers. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have a lot, but I know I was getting a lot in that moment. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to redistribute that right now, because right now we all need to eat.
I want to touch on the police piece one moment here, okay? I may make some people mad here a little bit, but I think there's going to be more, though, for me to better understand also. Though. Like, when people say defund the police, right? Your shirt says defund the police. I understand. The way I interpret that in some ways, it's like, okay, maybe we're just putting too much money into policing. But some people, so I can understand that better as far as like allocation of funds. I understand that better. But some people, I think, particularly Black people, there's some don't want any police, like no police. And I think that it's just a matter. I think that's how some people understand it when they say defund the police. I mean, like, no, we don't want no police. I can't agree with no police. Like, I do think that the police is like a fraternity. I do believe that I don't think there's any.
It's not like a fraternity. It's
it
like
is a fraternity. It is, and
a fraternal order of police.
And I think that.
So tell me why we need police.
I think it's hard to be a good police at the end of the day.
Tell me why we need police.
Well, at the end of the day, so if we didn't have police, I don't know that just as a society, I mean, I think we'd be at war with each other regardless.
We're not at war now?
Yeah, we're at war now, but I think it might be different, though.
Okay. What crime does police stop in the moment?
I mean, I think a lot of crimes.
Name one. In the moment.
In the moment. Well, police are reactive. They're not proactive. That bothers me about police because I work in mental health, and sometimes I'm trying to prevent something. I'm trying to prevent a moment, and they'll be like, well, can't do anything until something actually happens, right?
So they're not there to prevent crime. Okay. So do they stop crime?
I think at times.
Like when?
Someone is about to... someone's breaking into your home, or someone's about to kill you.
You call the police. They get there in time. Do they get there in time to help you?
Maybe not maybe not on time.
I need everyone to know he hasn't answered one question in favor of the police yet.
I
but these
mean,
are the questions I have with all the people, so I'm ready.
Yeah.
No, let's ask. But seriously, if someone breaks into your house and you call the police,
well,
are they there in time?
It initiates an investigation. That's all.
Does somebody with an investigation, do they need a gun when they're coming up? I mean, that's why I'm asking.
Well, no.
And I believe, let's be clear, I believe in these investigations, right?
Yeah.
When we are harmed against each other, I believe investigations should happen. I do not believe that is a man in blue with a gun that has been trained to hate Black people that needs to do that. I think even a social worker could do that investigation.
I agree with that.
Okay, so now you still haven't talked to me about why we need police.
I just think we need some type of structure. We could say, why do we need the military at the same time then?
Look, the police came from the military, right? Because the business class needed someone to protect their property because the strikers and the workers were beginning to strike. And they were like, the workers won't get back in the building. What do we do? The militia is actually busy at war. So they created their own local militia to protect their buildings. So the police were actually, this is like true story right here in Richmond. The police very first pension of Richmond Police Department was given from the business class. Remember I told y'all we're number one in business? So the police were never here to protect us, protect and serve. And actually looking at the Constitution, I would love to send people this podcast too, as constitutionally, the police don't actually even have to protect us. They could see a crime. They could see you kill, like say say somebody in this room is going to come and kill you right now. If I'm a police officer, if I don't ever touch you, engage, speak to you, they can kill you right here. And I held totally irresponsible, not responsible at all for watching it go down. So I don't, as a police officer, like you said, they're reactionary. They actually do not have to react to you unless you interact with them. Unless they interact with you. Then they're not even accountable or responsible anymore.
So obviously you're a believer that we don't need any police.
Yeah, I'm one of them black people. I believe that we do not need any police. And and people are like, well, what chaos is going to happen? Look, right here in Richmond, no police right there would free up over $100 million. Imagine if we didn't have to go the bullshit bureaucracy and that went straight to those folks that you think are about to go wild and rob you crazy. Imagine if we gave them $2,000 a month, $3,000. I mean, we're going to have millions and millions of dollars. Imagine if we gave them directly money. Now, do you feel safer?
Well, I mean, it obviously would minimize things. It would minimize, but...
maybe.
I think
and that's the point, right, is the actual crime
We've been conditioned.
Comes because we are disinvested and that we begin to fear our own people because of the conditions that the oppressor have put us in, to now we even want to use the oppressor's methods against our own people.
I just think that I just don't it's what I don't know. It's like
right.
We've been conditioned that we've always known, we've always had police.
911, the first numbers you learn, right?
Yeah.
Like cops and robbers, first thing you learn.
Yeah.
It's deep.
See what I told y'all?
It's deep.
I told y'all.
Defund the police.
I don't disagree with defunding.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly in these rural areas. The reason why I say that is because that's where there's some stuff going on.
Can I just say something about this defund the police thing?
What?
Politicians, especially the white Democrat center politicians, are so mad at this defund the police language that in Virginia, they just passed a budget right here in Virginia when we had our special session. They gave every law enforcement a $500 bonus as an olive branch to say, we're sorry for the defund the police language bills. That just happened yesterday. So, you hungry? You worried about your job and COVID right now? The Virginia legislature that just called a special session to address policing left the special session by giving the cops $500 extra bonus. Never mind in Richmond alone, they've gotten $2 million extra over the protest. Okay? $2 million extra budgets.
Wow. From the city?
Mm-hmm. From the state because of the national emergency. Remember when Ralph Northam caused a national emergency, that opened up $600,000 of extra funds just to blow us out of the water.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow.
First Amendment rights, go cops.
Hey.
Why do we need cops? You didn't answer my question.
She's gonna come back for part 2, and we're gonna expand on that one. We got 10 minutes here, and I got a lot of things I want to touch on. But we've touched on some of them. Let's see here. When you look back at the past year, you've been line leader. You've helped define and or redefine the lines that have not been so clearly understood. Just for an example, what we're talking about right now with the police. Mm-hmm. What has these historical experiences been like for you? I think that in the next couple of years, there's going to be a movie called 2020.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. They're making them now.
You're going to be in it, though. I'm talking about the Richmond 2020. You're going to be in it.
Well, I've done so many documentary interviews this summer. Everybody from across the nation wanted to talk to me. But they all wanted to talk about monuments, y'all. But I am working with organizers. I think it's important for us to tell our own story, too. And to be involved in that storytelling and not just be in it, but to truly be involved to tell their whole story. Because people actually know me, not because of the policing, but because of the big Navy Hill project that just passed. I was a big advocate in that. It's a big corporate giant, Dominion Energy, y'all, another just don't fuck with them. But that's why I was also really in the public light, because I was talking about corporate tax economic development. I didn't know none of that shit last year, but a bitch reads. And so I did all of that, again, because I have an agenda to further Black life, and I learned it, and so I could advocate for it. Mm-hmm. So that's actually how I got to the front of a lot of it. I was top 40 to 40 a couple years ago when white people didn't know I was as disruptive and dangerous as I was. And I think we were talking earlier about even being in the best podcast. Mm-hmm. And I sent you a message earlier today, and even though we're in Richmond Times-Dispatch as one of the best podcasts, when you go to the site, you click on it, it's actually my website. And so I reached out and I'm like, yo, would y'all mind linking the Race Capital website there? And I sent you the screenshot, but it says something like, sorry, because your Race Capital website advocates and talks about policing. We can't have that there because of our advertisers, and we can't actually link your podcast website to the best podcast website.
That's crazy.
So what I laugh about this is because this is what I hear from everyone in Richmond. Chelsea, we need you to educate, not advocate. That's how I survived the last 3 years, is that I've been out here educating white folks, calling it equity and inclusion, getting in the room, because I do have to eat. And again, I don't get a lot of return business, I'm going to be honest, because I am disruptive. And I'm telling these white people to give up their wealth.
There's nothing wrong with it, though. But I'm so because you was teaching at VCU.
I was, and I, oh my gosh, the students there were amazing, and so many students I also saw this summer. That was also the dope thing, is that because I was a teacher in the School of Social Work, and VCU is an institution. It's a big old colonizing, we call it Virginia Columbus University, by the way. It has colonized all of Richmond. And I just couldn't stay in the institution, but I love to teach. So I try and do that through Race Capital. But if anybody ever wants to invite me to a group and we talk about a certain piece of history that I've done some overreading on, I would love it.
Well, that's something that I'm definitely hoping that we can continue to build on. Some way of facilitating, co-facilitating to a broader group of folks where we get a lot of change makers in the room, such as yourself, such as Rebecca, just folks who's actually doing the work. I'm still very interested in that.
Yeah.
Talked to Sam about that. He's a part of the team, so.
Hey, Sam. Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. Especially, I like to talk about place, space, and time, and just like now, there's so much for us to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But if we maybe even narrow it down to a certain event that happened in Richmond, you can check out one of our latest podcast episodes that talked about the third political party, the Working Man Reforms Party, that actually built the old City Hall downtown, the beautiful building. People don't know that building right there, the reason why it was built on an 8-hour day and built by black labor, and black labor made money off of it, the entire reason we even have a monument of Robert E. Lee that won't come down is because black people built that city hall. And the connections of that, you have to tell the story, because it was the process of black organizers coming together, making a political party, demanding that they build actual construction and development that pays workers. What? And white people got so mad at that multiracial coalition that was led by a lot of black people that they're like, no, we can't have that. We're going to split up. We're going to say races have to stick separately. White people come over here, black people come over here. And that's when the Daughters of the Confederacy decided the strategic plan of the monuments, erasing our education, and really starting these rituals that we don't talk about in history, which is they used to just make parades and grieve their husbands and sons that were lost decades ago, just while waiting for this monument to arrive to remind people whites stick together. Whites stick together because of what they had seen happen in building this construction. Anyway, there's these times in these stories that we just don't know. I would love to come together, interrogate one of those stories, and see how they fit today and hear that.
Yeah, that sounds good. We're not done. We got 2 minutes, but I just want to say thank you for being on the show. This has been fun.
Yeah,
it's been fun.
Yeah, this has been fun. This is cool.
It's been fun.
I hope it's well received. Be graceful, y'all.
I hope it is. I hope it is. But if it's not, it's definitely gonna be informative.
Yeah.
I mean, to each his own. I think some people are going to receive it well. Some people, look, once you put it out there, you give people an opportunity to have an opinion of it. That's what makes art beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we have a lot of art folks who follow the podcast. So let me ask you this question. We're going to do some really quick, simple answer, fast questions real quick. What kind of music does Chelsea Higgs Wise listen to?
Great question.
Do you listen to music?
Yeah.
Or do you just listen to constant news?
I know. I do listen to constant news and podcasts. Mm-hmm. I'm a Beehive Beyonce girl so bad. And I know. And I mean, for years. Janelle Monáe.
Well, but why has it got to be anything wrong with a Beyonce?
Yeah. That's a whole other question, because I've talked a lot about capitalism, and Beyonce is like the queen of capitalism, but her I've been on a journey with Beyonce since 2003. So, but also all women MCs, my entitled title don't even play me anything except for women MCs, women artists. I was a big R&B girl, so I listen to still a lot of 90s and stuff. But yeah, so music.
Got you. All right, for those people who out there right now who are committed and invested in trying to change their attitude or improve their attitude toward, because you got to change your attitude before you can impact work.
Yeah.
What is your advice to them in regard to how they can make a change right now?
Make a change within themselves, or attitudinal shift, or the change?
Both.
Okay.
Both, and that's how we'll close.
Right. I'm a therapist, so I'll close with the cognitive behavioral, right? If you can change your cognitive, then you can change your behavior of how you're interacting with the people. And I would say the cognitive is to read and to listen into different information. And so literally like plan a time during your day where you would normally be listening to music or something else and listen to something informative or read something informative. And what you can do is the same thing. Volunteer work is really, really important. I've been overdoing it a little bit, but I think a lot of us could do more volunteer work and figure what that is. And even if it's just as much as going through, I even say like some of our volunteer work can be listening to our podcast because we give lots of calls to action. Like find whatever organization you trust and figure out how to get involved.
Gotcha.
That's a real easy thing.
Plug your podcast one more time. Plug the social media just one more time.
Yeah, my name is Chelsea Higgs Wise. You can find me at chelseahiggswise.com. You can find me on Instagram, Chelsea Higgs Wise. Please follow, subscribe, become a Patreon to Race Capital. That's RACECAPITOL. And marijuana justice. We are here to repeal the prohibitions and reinvest into Black communities. So please help us out and follow us at THC Justice Now on all social media platforms and marijuanajustice.org.
Thank you. This is the Chelsea Higgs Wise, and this is the Randy Wilson podcast. We're super excited to have her. This is episode 51. You can find this podcast everywhere that podcasts are except SoundCloud. For some reason, they don't take my upload. I don't know what's going on, but you can also learn more about me at randywilsonpodcast.com. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Randy. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, this is just part one. She'll come back for part two later, okay?
Check out later.
All right, thanks. Bye.